We also often get caught up in following somebody's suggestion, even though it may not be the best suggestion, or follow what we're calling groupthink. And when that occurs, we start seeing the scenario as General Patton stated, if everyone is thinking alike, then somebody isn't thinking. And if we start going back into our corporate offices, we're starting to see that fox in the henhouse syndrome, where the decisions that are getting initiated and implemented and approved by the same people, they end up producing some pretty poor financial results. Now, if we would only allow some of our other employees to get engaged in the decision-making process or encourage a culture of strategic thinking, we start seeing financial success as well as the speed and execution of our projects increase. Now, unfortunately, even if we were to do this with some of our employees, we're finding that they don't rate themselves very highly in the skills necessary to do strategic thinking. So before we talk about ways to improve in that area, let's first get a good understanding of what strategic thinking is and what it is not. A lot of times people will say that strategic thinking is problem solving, but if we look a little bit deeper, we realize that problem solving is more of a reactive occurrence. We start getting into firefighting mode. How many of us have either heard or run around our offices saying, man, look at how many fires that I've had to put out? It's very time consuming and actually just gives us a very small impact. It doesn't look out onto the horizon or look around the corner. It really just tries to fix or stop the bleeding. Now, from a strategic thinking perspective, we see that it's more proactive in nature. It's the preventing of the fires. It's the old Smokey the Bear mantra. Everybody remember Smokey the Bear? Only you can prevent forest fires. So the goal of strategic thinking is to keep those fires from even happening. It requires us to be forward thinkers. We've got to look at the big picture. And it allows us to not only look around the corner, but we can actually move the corner. Now, strategic planning and strategic thinking, sometimes those are synonymous, sometimes they get confused. I think there are some subtle differences. I think they need to go hand in hand. From a strategic planning perspective, it's typically a once-a-year type of activity. Now, who gets invited to that party? It's generally the executives. They go off on a retreat or go do a week-long or a weekend somewhere and come back with the roadmap, and generally they tell the people what we're going to do or how to do it. The old shut up and color type of mentality. Now, we tend to focus maybe on the year at hand. Maybe we're developing 2 or 3 year roadmaps. Anything further than 3 years tends to make it obsolete based upon the advancements in technology and the way the world is changing around us. When we start doing the strategic planning, yeah, sure, we may have some discussions about innovation or thinking strategically, but generally it's tied very closely to the budget, and generally when we start looking at budget cuts, our innovation or the new things that we wanted to put into effect are among the first things to go. So I like to say one of the differences between strategic planning and strategic thinking, the strategic plan is the what we want to accomplish. We've got to be able to use strategic thinking to provide the how we're going to accomplish that. Strategic thinking is something that we need to start fostering into our organizations as a day-to-day type of mindset. It will produce and allow us to have longer-term results, and it's going to be able to not only provide some innovation for our company, but it's going to allow us to figure out better ways to be more productive within our organization. Now, the Center for Applied Research has come up with 2 definitions for strategic thinking, but I like to borrow tidbits from each to kind of come up with my own foundation of what strategic thinking is, and that is strategic thinking is the finding and developing of unique opportunities to create value by rigorously challenging conventional thinking. So that will be our basis as the definition for strategic thinking going forward. Now, if I ask the question, do we think strategic thinkers are born versus made, I think for the most part we would all say that while there may be some inherent traits that allow us to more easily become strategic thinkers, I think everybody can become better in this area. Otherwise, why am I up here to tell you this stuff? So let me give you some kind of examples on how we can improve in our strategic thinking abilities. Now, how many people out there have tried to learn a new language? Larry, you mentioned your granddaughter's bilingual in German. Okay. How did she learn German? Okay, so some people may have read a textbook or taken a class. They may do Rosetta Stone. But the best way to learn a new language is through immersion, and it's also the best way to solve complex business environments as well. You see, From an immersion standpoint, our brains need to be faced with a challenge, to get kicked into overdrive, to start accessing those parts of our brain to do the strategic thinking. We also need significant soak time in order to build those powerful mental models. So making something from nothing, taking a current situation and doing something different with it. These two images are made, even though it appears there's a vase or two faces or an upside-down triangle, it's really the absence of material in the other shapes that create this new image. And if there are people out there who play at the game of golf like myself, you know that sometimes they do some advertising out on the golf course. The problem is most of the advertising was done what? At the tee box. Well, the problem is that we do different tee box. We start from different locations. If you're like me, you're trying to remember the 108 things that you have to do to get your body in alignment to even hit the ball off the little tee. And so they weren't getting much productivity or much return on the advertising there. But a company called Envision Golf decided to put the advertising out on the flags. Because regardless of what tee box you're hitting from, your goal is still to put the ball in the hole, and you still got to lift the flag out of the hole. And nowadays we have these rangefinders, so forever on the course, you're zooming in on the flag. And so they found a considerable return and more eyeballs on the advertisements on the flag versus doing it at the tee box. Flags have been around a long time. Advertising on golf courses have been around for a long time. So they took something that was there and made something new. Another company called Alchemy Goods in New York, New Jersey. New York and New Jersey was having some issues with disposing of the tires, the rubber tires. And Alchemy Goods said, hey, we'll take them off your hands for you. You don't have to pay to dispose of them. We'll take them. So they took those used rubber tires and they turned them into messenger carrying bags. You see the people on the bicycles going up and down. So very sturdy, very weatherproof bags, taking something that somebody was ready to throw away and made some new value out of it. So our goal here for making something from nothing is looking at ways to add value that aren't apparent to others. And if you remember, the working definition that we had about what strategic thinking was finding that new value.